Steve Stricker wins his first major, and Kang wins his first PGA Tour tournament. Let's look at the data that matters and see how they got it done. Let's tee it up.
Welcome to Data Access Golf, your home for rapid golf improvement. And now, from the thin air of the Rocky Mountains, next on the number one tee, your host, Aaron Stewart.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Data Access Golf, the podcast. It's great to be back home. It's great to be home and with my wife and kids and back in the big studio, which is actually just my office, with a weird mic that has a styrofoam something or other, foamy something or other on there to apparently make me sound better than I actually do. But anyway, here we are. I'm really excited to be back. Totally pumped that I am again an active golfer. So after 18 months, I'm happy to report, as I mentioned earlier, that I was able to finally play 18 holes of golf on my own ball for the first time in 18 months. And it was awesome. I did it pain-free, which I have tried to play golf a couple times during the healing period, and it's been painful. I actually had a friend tell me the other day that he was talking to Fred Couples, and Fred Couples was talking about injuries and different things and actually told him that, hey, you can play golf with a back injury, but there is no way you play golf with a wrist injury. And I have to say 100% I agree. It's just too painful and too awful to play with a wrist injury. And it just about, it was hard. It was hard not to be able to play golf. And it was so, but I will say it was so good to be back on the golf course. We played at the Raven Golf Club in Phoenix, Arizona. I played with a gentleman I've wanted to meet for a number of years, and it just kind of worked out, and we were able to go out and play together and had a great day. He played very well, and it was fun watching him play well, and it was just fun to, right? It's just good to be outside. And golf courses are just gorgeous and designed well, and when they're manicured well, and the putting greens are in good shape, and oh man, it's good. Really, really great. So loved that, loved everything about it. Really, some really good golf over the weekend. I was pretty fascinated with the Trinity Forest Golf Club. I always like Crenshaw courses a lot, and this one seemed a little bit different. My favorite course at Bandon is Bandon Trails, which is a Crenshaw course, or Course Crenshaw. I guess it goes either way. I mean, it doesn't go either way. I think Coors is always first, right? Coors Crenshaw. But anyway, I love Bandon Trails. It's my favorite. I know everybody else wants to be on the sea and the ocean, but I'm not a big ocean fan. So I don't particularly need to see the ocean, don't care to see the ocean, don't want to swim in the ocean, don't want to eat anything from the ocean. No thanks, right? No thanks there. And anyway, so really cool looking course. I love the idea of having this sort of big wide open park in the middle of Texas, and obviously it played a lot easier than it would normally play if the wind was blowing like it normally does in Texas. There was really no defense for the course, right? It was wide open, and that Kang just took it to shreds, which is pretty cool, pretty amazing. So I wanted to kind of look at some of the numbers. Steve Stricker obviously has a game that, boy, he's played better since he turned 40 than he did previous to 40. He probably should have won Comeback Player of the Year twice on the PGA Tour back when that was still something. But it's hard to not like Steve Stricker, right? So I know we don't talk about the Champions Tour much now, but Steve Stricker is awesome, and so I thought that we could talk about it. So what I did is sort of like we do always with the PGA Tours. I just pulled out some numbers. I will say that the Tour Champions website does not keep the stats like the PGA Tour site does, and so we just have to do the best we can. But anyway, Steve Stricker with his victory went all the way from 34th place in the Charles Schwab Cup and all the way up to 7th. And that was his first major victory, which is very cool. As far as some of the stats, I looked at his stats from last year on the Champions Tour to kind of give us an idea of how well he's playing. So Steve Stricker's driving accuracy for 2018 was 78%. We know he is a great driver of the golf ball, right? Our benchmark is 55%, and so Steve is well above that. Excellent. And because he drives the ball so well, you would expect his greens in regulation to be very high, and they are unbelievably high at 80%. And that's his average. I'm not talking a tournament. That's his average on tour. Our benchmark there is 65%. So again, well above our benchmark. Sand saves, he's at 40%. Our benchmark is 45%. So that's really the first little weakness we see in Steve Stricker's game. And if you look at that, Steve Stricker plays a lot. He plays most of his golf with a very, very limited motion in his. I just saw there's a spider in the corner. That's not cool. Anyway, I'm going to ignore the spider and continue on, and hope that it doesn't get any closer to me. But anyway, so Steve Stricker doesn't use a lot of wrist motion in his golf swing, and you really. To be a really good bunker player, if you watch them, other than Jason Day, he doesn't use a lot of wrist motion either, but he has so much clubhead speed anyway that he still has a lot of velocity through the sand. I can see where Steve Stricker has a very methodical, it almost looks slow motion kind of a swing, and he definitely moves it out there. I mean, his average drives like I had it right here, like 287 yards. For last year. So he still can move it out there just fine. But he doesn't use a lot of wrist. And you'll see that some of the best sand players like to have a lot of speed through the sand, and a lot of folks do that with some wrist play. So I was thinking about that going, wow, Steve is so good. I mean, scrambling, he's 67%. Our benchmark is 55%, so he's good there. They don't actually keep strokes gained putting stats on the Champions Tour, but he averages 1.663 putts per green, which, I mean, goes well with the scrambling number at 67%, so that works out about right. So really, the only weakness we can see in Steve Stricker's game is sand saves, and I believe that really has a lot to do with the fact that he doesn't really use a lot of wrist cock or motion in his golf swing, and it probably carries over to his sand game, and so he doesn't get up and down as much. So anyway, as far as the money goes, this is always we're going to do some funny things with money today. I think it's funny to look at. But anyway, for his victory today at the Regions Tradition, he picked up a cool $360,000. His total score was 270 strokes. So for the 4 days, he averaged $90,000 a day. Not a bad wage. His per hour rate was $18,000 an hour. And his per stroke rate was $1,333 per stroke. So very, very cool there. That's obviously $360,000 is most of the LPGA. If you look at their just standard tournaments and not their majors, they average anywhere from $270,000 down to $180,000 for first place. So the Seniors Tour majors are more than the LPGA Tour, but the LPGA Tour's first major, the ANA Inspiration, paid out $450,000. So their first major actually paid out more, $90,000 more to the winner than the Champions Tour, which I thought that was interesting. I thought that was pretty fascinating. So great big congratulations to Steve Stricker. It's cool to see him win his first major, and it's fun to see him win on the Champions Tour. And honestly, couldn't happen to a nicer guy, right? Really great. So let's move on to Sung Kang. He's kind of an interesting player. He's played all over the world. He's played on the Korean Tour, the Japanese Tour. He went to a very prestigious university in Korea. I don't know if you heard his post-round interview, but he speaks wonderful English. He does a really good job there. Very well spoken. He had to deal with some controversy. Obviously, he was called out. I think it was Matt Emery called him out a little bit for his slow play. That would probably tick a few folks off, and maybe it ticked him off, but he sure didn't show it. He stayed calm and played well. One of the things that I noticed, and I don't know if it's because I mentioned that I had been on the body track a few days ago, and that my pressure shift occurs early in my swing, but then it starts to drift back, so it's 50-50 at impact. Well, it was very fascinating. If you go back and watch the video on Sung Kang, he really worked on that first move, changing pressure to that front foot, and he exaggerated it, and I thought that was pretty cool to see that, everybody knows that it's got to be, 95 to 100% of that pressure has got to be on that front foot, and it's got to stay there when you're hitting through a golf shot. So it's kind of fun to see his pre-shot routine that he was working on it that way. So anyway, let's go ahead and take a look at the numbers then for Sung Kang and how he got it done. Very fascinating to see. He played a lot better than he normally does. And on that golf course, again, it was soft. And it was close. I guess he lives in Texas, which I saw that. He was close to home. Maybe that helped. But anyway, so when he started the week, he was in the FedEx Cup standings. He was at 71st place. And with the victory, he jumped all the way up 50 spots to 21st place. And then also jumped up in the world golf rankings to 75th. So I'm going to start looking at that now too. So that changed quite a bit for him as well. As far as his consistency number, he has played in 159 PGA Tour events, and he has made 83 cuts for a consistency number of 52%. About half, right? Which, again, not the lowest anymore. After Max Homa's win last week, he makes cuts at a 38% rate, and hopefully that will go up. So Sung Kang is right in line with like a Corey Connors, and well, that's about the only other 50%er. So he's like in third lowest. So not a great number, consistency number at 52%, but he got the win today. So he got the win yesterday. So good there, good on him there. And then if we jump into his performance numbers, this is interesting. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So for the week, we're going to look at the week and then obviously his 2018 numbers. I like to look at the full year, and that's what we did our benchmarks off of anyway, is the full year of 2018 numbers. So for the week, and again, wide fairways, soft fairways, so let's take it with a grain of salt. But he hit 86% of his fairways, which is, if I scan up the page, 86% is absolutely the best driving accuracy percentage for the entire year. So that kind of gives you an idea of how wide that golf course was playing and how wet that golf course was playing. Typically, all of 2018, Sung Kang's average was 57%. So he was literally 30% higher than he normally plays. Again, wider fairways. Right as far as right now goes, he is leading the PGA Tour as far as fairway accuracy in for one tournament for a victor. So okay, and obviously our benchmark then is 55%. He was well above that. If you look at his average, he was only 2 points above that for all of 2018. Looking at his greens in regulation for the week, the victory week, he got up and down 79% of the time, which our benchmark is 65%, so that is very, very good. But his 2018 number is 63%. So typically he doesn't, greens in regulation, he hits below our benchmark, typically on average. He just happened to do a lot better this particular week. And even with his a lot better this particular week at 79%, that's still 1% lower than Steve Stricker's average for greens in regulation for his entire career. For all 2018 on the Champions Tour. So interesting numbers there for sure. Sand saves, he was 100% this week, up and down out of the sand. Typically he is 50%. Our benchmark then is 40%, so he is well above that. Strokes gained putting. This is kind of where we see that he got it done. Over the course of 2018, he averaged 0.2 strokes per round. So less than 1 stroke per tournament advantage over the field. For this particular tournament, he averaged almost 2.6 strokes per round. So that's over 10 strokes he made up on the field with the putter. Amazing putting week for... So those big... And they were huge greens. And typically on those, putting on huge greens is pretty tough. And he did a very good job. Or he just did a much better job than the rest of the field. Everybody else had a problem with it. Again, he lives in Texas. He's a local boy. I don't know if he's played here a bunch, but these greens worked very well for him, for sure. Okay, his scrambling number for 2018, we get away from... The PGA Tour doesn't keep track of the next numbers per tournament. So we're just looking at the 2018 numbers now. His scrambling percentage for all of 2018 is 52%. Our benchmark, where we believe, if you're above this benchmark, you don't have to work on it. If you're below, you really should. Our benchmark is 55%. So we would recommend that Sung Kang work on his scrambling, getting up and down around the green. And we would recommend that he work on his, what was the other one? Greens and regulation. Right? So approach shots and getting up and down around the green. Right now are two areas in where we would, based on the benchmarks, we would tell Sung Kang he should focus his practice on. Okay, putting now. For 2018, from 20 to 25 feet, Sung Kang made 7.69% of his putts. Our benchmark is 9%. So we would have Sung Kang work on his 20 to 25 foot putts. From 15 to 20 feet, he makes 16.5% of those. Our benchmark is 17%. So again, just a little below our benchmark. Putting from 10 to 15 feet, he makes 29.9%, almost 30% of those. Our benchmark is 28%. People that make less than 28% from that range, Patrick Reed, Keegan Bradley, and Francisco Molinari. And then from 5 feet, Sung Kang makes 74.19%, and our benchmark is 80%. So again, that's definitely, that's almost 6 points below our benchmark, which is kind of the minimum acceptable level. So we would say to Sung Kang, if he was using our benchmarks to look at his game, we would have him go out and work on his 5-foot putts, his 20 to 25-foot putts. We would have him work on his scrambling game, and we would have him work on his approach shots. Those are the 4 areas where he performed less than our benchmarks for 2018. So, and then as far as putts per round, 29.24. And we have as our benchmark 30. Anything less than 30 is great. So those are the numbers that got it done for Sung Kang. Obviously, he is way above his average, especially for putting. Greens and regulation were way above. Driving accuracy was insanely higher, 30 points higher. Between the driving and, he played an all-around great tournament and deserved to win, obviously, pulling away there at the end. So, what do you have, 3 birdies on the back 9? Or was it 4? But yeah, definitely played tough and pulled away at the end. So congratulations to Sung Kang. So let's take a look at the money. And this caused me to do something a little different I don't normally do, but we'll look at this as well. So for a first place win, he picked up $1.422 million, which is the same amount as Wells Fargo the week before, which is interesting. There's no other tournament that pays out so far this year at that 1.422 million. He did it in 261 strokes. So that equates to $355,500 a day for the 4 days. That means that he made about $71,000 per hour. And because his strokes were so low, he made $5,448 per stroke, right? Steve Stricker made $1,333 for his major win on PGA Tour Champions. So as far as career money goes, this kind of gives us a per tournament number for our winner. He has made $7.4 million in his career on tour. As we mentioned earlier, he has made 83 cuts, which puts him at an average of $89,000 per tournament where he makes the cut. Right? Obviously, these victories jack that up quite a bit, but that's his number, 89 $100,000 per tournament now with that victory. So pretty cool numbers. Obviously, right, those are numbers that are hard to believe. $355,000 a day. Kind of hard to get your head around that, isn't it? So excellent job there for Sung Kang. His first PGA Tour victory. I know that obviously, South Korea is a huge golf mecca. They're golf crazy. And we've seen such a uptake in really talented women from South Korea playing on the LPGA Tour. And so, but I wanted to look at the discrepancy between the money between the two tours. And anybody who's listened to me long enough knows that that kind of stuff is just interesting to me. So what I did was I went back to the first of the year on the LPGA Tour, and I took all the winners of an LPGA tournament who are from South Korea, and I took all their prize money and put it down into a chart. So far this year, there has been 6 South Korean winners of LPGA Tour events. Jin Young Ko did them back-to-back, right in a row, right? And one of those is actually a major, ANA Inspiration, run by Jin Young Ko, where she was paid $450,000. But anyway, if you take those 6 and you add up all of their first place prize money, including one major, it comes to 1.6. It comes to 1.5, almost $1.6 million total. And we know that Sung Kang made $1.422 million. So that's a difference of only $168,000. So Sung Kang wins a PGA Tour event, yes, but it's not a major. And yet the South Korean women have won 6 events, one of them being a major, and they're only ahead of Sung Kang collectively by $168,000. And he obviously has made that up elsewhere, playing on the PGA Tour, right? So his official money so far this year, and he's played in quite a few tournaments, but it's $2.37 million so far this year. And obviously that 1.4 adds to that quite a bit, right? He made $900,000 without that victory. So that's kind of interesting, right? That there's the discrepancy between the two. Again, it goes all down to sponsorship. It goes all down to eyeballs and who's watching what, and I get that. But it's interesting though, right? The competitive nature of the LPGA Tour, the competitive nature of the Champions Tour, and the PGA Tour. It's just interesting to me that there's so much money going to the PGA Tour, and there's such a discrepancy in the other tours, which I find fascinating because, again, I'm a geek. I'm a golf geek. I like watching all golf. It doesn't matter where it is. And so I watch all the tours, and obviously some people only watch the PGA Tour, and that's why they can pay so much more than everybody else. But still very interesting stuff. Anyhow, I wanted to get Data Monday out to you today. It was a great day of golf. I'm glad to be among you again as a living, breathing golfer and off the injured reserve list. So I am so grateful. Anybody who wants to play, I'm ready now. I feel confident. The wrist has not bothered me one iota since, and I'm very excited about it. Had a great time playing. I hope you got out this weekend. I hope we all get out every weekend and nobody gets injured, and we have a great summer getting better at this great game, the greatest game in the world, and it's not even close. Until next time, this is Aaron Stewart saying thank you very much. And better data always means better golf. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Data Access Golf with Aaron Stewart. Check us out online at dataaccessgolf.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.